Okay. So now I want to introduce Susan Herrmann Loomis. Okay, who, I must tell you, makes the best tarte tatin in the world. Okay, aside from all of her other accolades. So she is an internationally recognized expert on food and an award-winning journalist and author. Susan takes a unique approach to her craft by combining training in journalism with a love for food and the people who produce it. It all started with cooking school in Paris, then a year co-researching and authoring the Food Lovers Let me say that again.
You can do it.
Of course I can do it. The Food Lover's Guide to Paris by Patricia Wells. Everybody know that?
Oh, sure.
That was like the first one on our shelves, right?
Yeah,
okay, okay. Wasn't just Patricia.
It was you too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Every day.
They
It
walk.
was my Bible.
There you go.
Could still be.
There you go. They walk the streets of this famous city, tasting, sipping, getting up at all hours to visit bakers and cheesemakers, restaurateurs, and markets. Susan went on to do extensive travel throughout the United States, France, Italy, the Middle East, and parts of Asia as she researched books, always keeping in mind the people behind the food. What captivates her, aside from flavor and excellence, are the people who grow and then fashion our food into gorgeous tastes, like you.
Thank you.
She is passionate about tradition, and all of her work has led her to investigate, share, then write about food and agricultural traditions throughout the world, focusing mostly on France, where she lives. Susan's an award-winning author of 14 books.
Oh, gosh.
I have a few just to show you here.
It's just
I
a
have none
few.
to sell, but
Both food and literary. The most recent of which is Plat du jour. Did you bring it?
I did. It's right
Plat
there.
du jour. Susan's presentation will include an update on living in France with some new and useful tips, hints, and stories, as well as a talk on how to bring a good cookbook from dream to reality.
Thank you, Adrian.
Oh, honey, I just dream about your tarte tatin.
Well,
Susan Loomis.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming. It's a gorgeous afternoon out there, a little warm. But I really appreciate that you're all here to hear me talk about this incredibly broad topic that I've been assigned or asked to talk about. And I have lived in France for a long time. I'm going to do a real quick update of how I got here and why I stayed. I have a degree in journalism, and I was writing for newspapers, and actually I was doing this incredibly boring job doing public relations, and I spent all my time reading travel and food magazines. Until one day, it occurred to me that I could write for these magazines. So in order to do that, I had to learn how to cook. I was living in Seattle, and so my choice was either Japan or France, but I didn't speak any Japanese, and I spoke a little bit of French. So I came here to be an apprentice. And I was an apprentice for a year, and I learned how to cook, and I learned technique, and I got yelled at by chefs, and I spent all kinds of time in the kitchen at the market, and I just fell in love with food. And then I was hired to open a small cafe, which I did, and I cooked there for a year, and one day a lady came in, and actually I'd worked for her before, and she came for lunch, and she said, would you like to help me write a book? And that was Patricia Wells, and the book was Food Lover's Guide to Paris. So we spent a year and a half, literally, as Adrian said, walking the streets of Paris. And at that time, we would always have lunch at some wonderful place that we were trying out. And most of the time, we'd be the only women. Because in those ancient days, restaurants were for business people, and business people were businessmen. So we'd be there, and I'll never forget, we were at this wonderful restaurant called Pile ou Face, and it was fantastic. We became friends with the chefs, and one of the guys who ran the restaurant, he goes, I asked myself, who were these nana? You know, we're the only women in the restaurant. We're asking all these questions, like, you know, where did the rabbit come from? How did you prepare it, et cetera, et cetera. He goes, who are these nana asking all these questions? So now, of course, there are lots of nana and papa and everybody else asking tons of questions, but it was really It was really a pioneering effort to write that book, and it just cemented my admiration for what the French are always trying to do, which is achieve excellence, especially in food and luxury goods. Now, I went back to Seattle to work, and I didn't love working in Seattle after I'd been exposed here, because I realized that the striving for excellence wasn't quite the same. So 10 years after my husband and I went back to the US, we came back here with our child, and we had another child. We bought a big house in Normandy, lived there for 27 years. I opened a cooking school, and that part of my life is history, thanks to Adrian.
Well, that was quite a house.
Oh,
you
the
should
house.
You should talk about your house.
Yeah, the house was great. I think some of you may have been there. Did you come ever? No. Well,
we filmed there. We filmed a House Hunters
We
there.
did a House Hunters episode, and I did cooking classes there for 20 years. I can't believe none of you ever came. Thank you very much. No, but it was a former convent, and it was right in the center of a small town, across from not a cathedral. It could have been a cathedral, but the bishop didn't live in the town. So my neighbor was the gargoyles, the statues on the outside of this gorgeous church. And when we first bought the house, honest to God, to be super honest with you, I was married to a sculptor who needed a project. Voila, the house. It was a ruin. He was excellent. He fixed it up. And I worried a little bit when we got there, because I thought, oh my God, this, it's living across from stone. Is it going to be heavy? Is it going to be immutable? It was fantastic.
13th century, right?
It was built between the 11th and 12th century. And the foundation of the house was 11th century. So the house was old. We put in a professional kitchen. I raised 2 kids there, and just sold it last year. And Adrian, and it was not easy. And as I said, I'm suffering PTSD from separating from my wonderful house. But it's in the hands of good people. So I'm very happy
from it. Okay?
I know.
The fact that you're not
I know.
there
I have a lot of
anymore.
people say, God, I never made it out there. What did you do that for? It's like, well, one does have to tackle new adventures. So now I live in Paris full time. I have a cooking school here. I teach 1-day, 3-day classes. They're really fun. I would love for you to come. So you go to my website. But, part of my mandate this afternoon is to talk about little tips and hints about living in Paris. It is a different ball game than living in a country town. I love it. The thing about being in a country town and being one of 3 Americans there is that every time you sneezed, it was on the front page of the paper. And as an introvert, which no one ever believes about me, but it's actually true, it was sometimes, it was fun. It was great. You know everybody. Although I didn't really announce what I was doing, but people would say, why are all those people in your yard wearing aprons? Because I wrote a book called En route Tata, which is a memoir. It's the first volume of a 2-volume memoir. This is the house. And I started getting, phone calls and emails from strangers, and I was really worried about it. So I didn't talk to anybody in the town about what I had done. But I did get an award from the town for being like an ambassador for the town. I have a medal that I never wear, but that was kind of sweet.
Well, you put it on the map.
I put the town on the map. I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Had a lot of people come. Lots and lots. I don't even know how many people. But we did meals. Adrian would be in groups, and we did meals. And it was a wonderful place to live, wonderful place to raise kids. I think. My kids are very, contributing members to society, and they have wonderful memories, and they tried to tie me to the house so I wouldn't sell it. But my son lives in Texas, my daughter lives in Holland, so we are éparpillés, we are spread all over the map. But tips and tricks, it's funny because when you live in a small town, as I said, everybody knows what you're doing. And when for instance, we had a dog, and was named Dusty. I'm sure you met Dusty. This dog would jump on everybody. This dog was the happiest dog in the world.
Oh, no.
And one of my students named her the mayor of Louviers because she would just trot around town. I couldn't tie her up. She'd bark all day. And she just would run around town. And everybody in that town loved that dog. And they'd have water, little water out for her, feed her things. And she'd come home at the end of the day. And then I gave her away because she needed more space. She got big and she needed more space. And you can all think I'm a bad person for doing that. I'm sure you're right. But I go to the market. She would always follow me to the market. And I get to the market and people would say, "Where's your tutu? Where's your dog?" So people in a small town pay attention to everything you do, which is really sweet.
Sort of.
But I love living in Paris where nobody cares what you do. You know, you walk out the door and it's like nobody knows who you are. You can do whatever you want. And I don't even do anything. But it's just, I love living here. And I sent an SMS to Adrian because I was a few minutes, I want to get here a little earlier. And I come downstairs and I ride my bike everywhere. So I have my bike in a little bike place that you have to walk it through the lobby of the building. So they're painting the lobby of the building. So to get my bike through the lobby of the building, I'm trapped. So the painters have to like pick up all their brushes, they have to pick up all their paint, they have to move everything. It took me 15 minutes to get out of the building. And I thought, is that because I'm in France or would that happen in the US too? I don't even know anymore. Everything here takes more time. It's really efficient. I mean, if you all know, you take the metro, it's the most amazing system maybe in the entire world. But then you try to get out of the lobby of your building and it takes you 15 minutes. So, and the bike, you know, I just bought the apartment just a few months ago. And the guy who sold it to me said, "Here's where you put your bike. They're going to redo this." So I was like, okay, I think he was lying. I don't think they ever will, and it's this little tiny place, but at least it's sheltered. But there are lots of things to know about living in Paris, and one of them is you can become a regular here so quickly. You can create a neighborhood, be part of a neighborhood so quickly. So while the work was being done in my apartment, and that's a whole other story that I am suffering PTSD from, so I don't even know if I can talk about it. But I would go to the cafe right down the street from my apartment, literally 2 minutes. And within 5 days, they recognized me. They knew what I liked to drink. Mm-hmm. They greeted me. They handed me Le Parisien newspaper, which I love to read. It is the greatest rag on earth. You will learn everything about everything. I mean, if you read it today, it's all about Gerard Depardieu, right?
Well, that's
18
big
months.
News.
18 months that he doesn't have to serve 20,000 euro. And he's fighting it. Anyway, anything else you'd like to know?
He was up for 5 years in prison, right? That was the
Yeah,
potential
he
sentence.
got 18 months.
18 months in prison? No.
Avec sursis. He doesn't have to serve.
Oh, time.
Yeah, he doesn't have to serve. But that was the headline today.
No electronic bracelet either.
Oh, do they even have those here?
They do. And they use
Oh yeah, Sarkozy wore one. But yeah. Well, anyway, you learn all this stuff. If you read the Parisien, you learn all this stuff. It's great. You learn at the cafe with all these French people around you. So you can ask questions if there's something you don't understand. The other thing, so if you're here for a week, a month, a year, go to the same cafe every day.
You know, this does not happen in the United States.
I don't think it does.
It's my name is Mary. I'll be your waitress, but she doesn't give a shit about
No.
you. Okay?
And the thing about here is that you'll never learn these people's names because it's not about personal. It's about service. It's about, I don't know what it's about actually. I haven't really figured it out.
It's about relationship.
Yeah, it's about community. So you can feel so quickly like you're part of the city. And I used to think even as a student here, I had no idea what to expect. I'd been to Paris once. I didn't know anything. I mean, I was like a greenhorn. It was like, I mean, I didn't grow up in a farm in Iowa, but I might have because I got here and I'm like, my eyes were like this for a year.
Harriet did.
Yeah, one of
Grew
my
up in
best friends
Iowa.
did too, and she's. No, Iowans are very sophisticated, especially if they grew up on a farm. But this city adapts to your dream of what it is. That's what Paris is all about. Like, you come here with stars in your eyes about the gardens. Look out the window. The gardens here are beautiful, and there are millions of them. Or maybe not the handsome Frenchmen. There are some though. There definitely are some. But you know, the romance of Paris is available to everybody in the way that you or I want it. And that's what makes this city, that's part of what makes this city so great. The food here is outrageous, and I'm laughing because at this table they had frog's legs. I didn't even know you could order those anymore.
Oh, yeah.
That is such a throwback. Yeah, they're back, and I don't know where those legs come from. They used to come from Bangladesh.
Probably Thailand.
They used to all come from Bangladesh in the 80s.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
In Nice, they serve them a lot.
Do they?
Yeah, La Provençale.
Yeah. Well, it's back. And then over there, I saw a cook, madame. You know, these are iconic dishes, and they're comfort food. They're French comfort food. There are frites all over this room. You know, I mean, frites are one of the greatest things about France. Like, if you're sort of hungry but not really, you can go in and order frites, and nobody's mad at you for that. You know, you don't have to spend any amount of money at a cafe. You know, it's not like you go and they want you to spend $40 or 40 euros. You go, everybody knows if you take your coffee at the bar, it's less expensive, right? Prices are climbing for coffee, I will say, up to €1.30 for an espresso in my neighborhood. But still, I go to America all the time because my son lives in Texas, God bless him. And you can't touch anything for $1.30.
No.
Nothing at a restaurant.
Lunch is $50 minimum.
Yes. So there are just so many ways to live in this city and make it yours. And I'm imagining because you're all here, you know that. You know, it's just, Paris is different for you than it is for you than it is for you. But it's a unique kind of city. And I was even thinking about those guys in the lobby of my apartment building. They're not French. But they have that excellence, you know, their little paintbrushes and their little paint and their care and their little shifting around. The guy, he was on I don't know what you call it, a movable stage, you know, because he's painting the ceilings. Merci. So he's like moving it like this to get it out of the way of my bicycle. I thought it was really cute. It's like doing the scaffolding dance. But there are just lots of little ways to live in this city and make it easy on yourself. We still, businesses here still take cash, which is also kind of a throwback. When I go visit my daughter in Holland, there's no cash up there. No, I was at the grocery store, I filled my bags with groceries, I went to pay, I didn't have a Dutch credit card, special credit card, or cash, left my groceries at the store. So, you know, we're still this old-fashioned country because we pay in cash. And if you hire people, you can always strike a deal with workers here. Because there is an underground community called Oblak. And nobody wants to work entirely Oblak because they have to pay taxes. They have to show earnings. But you can always strike a deal. So, and prices here are good for so many different things. So living in Paris, I find, is just amazing. I moved into a building where I live in the 15th. It's a very interesting neighborhood that nobody knows about, and that's one of the reasons I like it, because it's a neighborhood. So there are lots of little neighborhood stores that have been there forever, a few little neighborhood restaurants. People are kind of old, like me, or they're young families. So there's all this life going on around, but there are very few tattoos in my neighborhood. Very few. Or piercings, or Asian salad bars, or so I can always come across the river for that. And I love to. I love to go around République or La Bastille and everything, but to live in Paris and at least for me to experience the graciousness of it, I think the 15th there are little gardens everywhere. I'm a 20-minute walk from the Eiffel Tower. I'm a 25-minute walk from the Bon Marché. I mean, all these places that are important. So it's wonderful. And so what I decided, I no longer have a garden to take care of or a house to worry about or a roof to fix or a chimney to fix, or it's amazing. And I haven't quite digested a lot of it yet, but what I did by moving to Paris is I bought myself time. So I'm working on a novel, and you can't work on a novel when you're worried about a house. And I'm also helping people write their cookbooks, and I'm teaching classes. So it's all worked out. I have a very tiny apartment that actually is just a large kitchen with a little cubby hole for sleeping. But that's exactly what I wanted. So I must say to all of you, be careful what you wish for, because you'll get it, and then you'll stand there, and your daughter, who's 6'2", comes to visit, and you're like, oh, wonder where she's going to sleep. No, she just spent 3 weeks with me. It worked out perfectly. So how many of you here own an apartment? A lot of you. A lot of you. Wow. Wow. And how long have you all been here?
A long time.
A long time. Adrian, you've been here 40 years?
30.
30. January. Oh, since January. Oh my gosh, that's why your eyes are kind of like. So you probably are experiencing some of the French paperwork. Yes. So everybody here complains about paperwork, but I have a question for all of you. Most of you are Americans, right? As in North American, United States of, right?
Or Canada.
Okay, well, yeah, but you know. That's a joke. That's a joke. So my best friends are Canadians.
And most Americans are now jealous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, most
not
Americans wish they were in Canada. Okay?
So I'm just curious, because it is true there's a lot of paperwork to do here. Like outrageous. Like when you sell a house, it's awesome in the true sense of the word. Like you're just spending 6 months with and when you have the best help on earth, it's still awesome. So I have files on my computer that I'm afraid to look at. Because even though the sale is done, everything's cool, somebody else owns my house, I'm like afraid somebody's gonna call me and say, we need that paper. And if I don't have it, you know, I'm gonna go to jail or something.
How many pages is your acte de vente?
Oh, my acte de vente.
How many pages?
It's this thick. It's probably 35, 30 pages.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so those of you who haven't purchased, when you purchase, and I remember this from buying the house. So we buy this house in Louviers, which is a cute little town. And, you know, I have friends there. That's one of the reasons we moved there. But you realize when you are in France and you have French friends, they're amazing. They're just like friends everywhere of any nationality. However, it's not like they're going to bring you soup if you're traumatized. Okay? So we're buying this old house, and we have to go sign the acte de vente. So I don't even know if we do this in the U.S. Do we sign, but is it the same like
so
here?
It's a deed. Yeah, you sign a deed. Yeah,
Yeah, but but in France, they read the deed out loud.
Oh, yeah, they don't do that in the States.
I
No.
mean, 35 pages of boring, uninteresting stuff. And in Louviers, the notaire who does this, we also don't have notaires in the U.S. I still don't even know what a notaire is, to be honest with you.
A notaire is an attorney, okay? A particular attorney that handles all sorts of transactions and life
I know.
issues.
I
but
mean,
they're
I know-
they're really tax agents for the state.
They are.
No,
So,
that's what they do.
yeah.
They collect the tax. They're
Yeah.
licensed to collect the tax and pay it.
They don't have to be lawyers.
No. They're no
so
ter-
many notaries inherit their job.
Oh no, they have to go to school. No,
yes,
no.
Yes, yes,
Oh, no.
they do. They do have to have degrees. Absolutely.
Oh, are you kidding? To become a notaire is a
Many
huge
of
leap.
the notarial offices are passed from generation to
But they still have to go to school.
Oh,
Believe
sure.
me, it's much harder than becoming a lawyer, from what I've heard. But we're in Louviers. We've got this notaire who's big guy, and he starts reading the Act of On. It was like 80 degrees in his office, and the woman who's selling the house, who was kind of odd. We're all sitting there, and this guy is reading it, and it's just like, oh my God. And my husband didn't understand a word of French. And I did, but after a while you just lose interest. It's not a Netflix movie. It's just like, and then all of a sudden the notaire goes, pay attention here. And there was,
Clause?
the priest had the right of way. What do you call that? Remember?
The priest.
The priest who lived behind us had the right to walk through our garden. Easement.
The easement.
Easement. And he reads the easement and he said, pay attention. If you ever want to sell this house, this will make it impossible. So of course by then we're so stunned we don't even care. And it didn't make it impossible. But oh my God, I just dealt with that stupid thing 8 months ago. Because all of a sudden the easement. And then you get this notaire back, and they're talking this language that you can't understand, and then it's costing you all this money. And it's like, are you kidding me? And you cannot negotiate with a notaire.
Oh, no.
I tried.
No, no.
I mean, I lived in that house for almost 30 years. They're supposed to give up the easement after 30 years. I said, how much longer do I have to stay here so I don't have to pay this outrageous sum of money? Didn't work. I paid the money. But they're all these, they're kind of quaint though. It's like when you make your will here, you have to write it out in longhand 3 times. 3 times. Because you're going to have a copy. Then you have to give it to 2 other people who are designated as whatever. So there you are writing out your will longhand. You can't do it on a computer.
In French, of course.
In French. It's really kind of sweet. Because if I listen to people in the US, they say, kids don't learn to write in school anymore. That will never happen here. Kids here do not learn to print. They go straight to cursive. So there's a link between brain activity and writing.
And they get graded on it.
Oh my God, they get graded out. When my son was in CP, which is like first grade, they have these little cahiers and they're writing. And these little kids, their fingers are fat. They're still little. So he came home from school one day and he said, Mom, my teacher held my cahier up in front of the class and ripped out the page that I'd done. And she said, this is disgusting. I'm like, I was so angry. And, smoke is coming out of my ears. And I look at his dad and I go, I'm going in there tomorrow. And Joe is standing there and goes, Mom, she does it to everybody. So I learned, the education system here is totally shame-based.
Yeah, no,
It is.
Yeah,
You would agree with
absolutely.
me.
That's right.
You would agree with me.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
bad, or whatever.
Intimidation and humiliation.
It is totally about shame. And, my kids went through good country schools. Nothing bilingual, nothing fancy. I tried to get my daughter in some bilingual school in the suburbs of Paris, and it's like $27,000 for a year. I'm a writer. And, we go for this big interview, and the woman who was the director looks at me and she goes, we want your daughter, but we don't have an endowment. It's like, okay. But my kids went to really, really good schools. And they are contributing to society in their ways. And both have thanked me for their education. Because I was worried there for a while. When you grow up in a shame-based system, where you have to learn to underline everything in specific colors with a ruler. And you know, they have this little penmanship that's all kind of étriqué because they're gripping the pen so hard because they're afraid they're going to make a mistake. You kind of worry about it. But then they had lots of other cool stuff. I mean, they had to memorize poems. And they don't forget those poems. And I don't know very many American adults who can like whip off a poem. So there's a real balance to it. They also learn to read. They learn to write, not compose. They do not learn to compose. But they learn to write and they learn math. And they learn all kinds of languages. Like, I feel like my daughter could speak anything. You know, Latin, Greek. I mean, they just learn all this cool stuff that has nothing to do with reality. but it's like called general culture. So I actually highly recommend it. And if you can do the bilingual thing, you have kids who need that. I have no experience with that, so I don't know.
Ultimately, they benefited, though, right?
My kids definitely benefited, yeah. My daughter's 26, and she's just started a doctorate in regenerative agriculture in Holland, and her doctorate is in Dutch. So she speaks Dutch. I don't know. She did that on her own after she left home. Dutch is a really hard language to learn, but you know, for her, I mean, she had Spanish and Latin and Greek and all this stuff. So, and my son is doing a job that I have no idea what it is in Texas, and he's doing well. So, pardon me?
Where did the kids go to college?
Joe started out at Parsons School of Design in New York, and then went to St. John's in Annapolis, and made it through. Out of 400 kids, 80 make it through, and he made it through. Weirdest curriculum I've ever seen in my life. Fiona went to the University of Utrecht, and then the University of Wageningen, which is a big ag school, the biggest ag school in Europe. So she wants to save the planet through soil. So yeah, they're, and I think they, you know, what they, okay, so starting a doctorate is not an easy thing, evidently. I had no idea, but I know now that it's not an easy thing. So I was mentioning this to one of my wonderful students, and she said, oh God, you know, it's really tough. The first few months are tough. And I was talking to a French person, or I don't know who it was, but the French system is so codified, the education system. Kids, throughout the time they're in education, are told exactly what to do, exactly what to study, exactly what, you know, everything is just laid out. So for instance, example, 9/11. Joe was in, I don't know, he was like second year of high school, I can't remember. Anyway, he goes to school the day after 9/11. They ask him to sing the Star Spangled Banner, or the whatever. So he does that, and then they go back to studying the Middle Ages. That's it. That was it. It's codified. They have to get certain things done all the time. And so the kids don't develop, this is a generalization, they don't tend to develop critical thinking or independence in study. So then you get to a doctorate, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I have to start thinking for myself. When you're coming out of the French system and you're in a different system, it's a big transition. So there are upsides, downsides to everything. So, but I would say living in France is an incredibly rich experience. People often ask me if I think about going back to the US to live. I don't. I have family there, I have dear friends there, and they say, what do you miss? At this stage of the game, I don't even miss Cheetos. I used to, but now people kind of know my dirty little secret and they bring them.
Saran wrap.
Oh, saran wrap that doesn't like glue up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tin foil. Yeah, but that's really bad for the planet. Aluminum foil is bad for the planet. Saran wrap also, but I do this great dish where you cook eggs in saran wrap. It's really good. Yeah, stuff like Ziploc bags here are kind of crappy. They're really good in the US. Dental floss. Oh my God, what else? You're right. Oh, peanut. You can get peanut butter here now. I just make my own. Yeah, but you know, my kids, you know, I grew up loving peanut butter. In fact, I had the same sandwich every day for like 15 years, according to my ancient mother, who isn't with us anymore. But so my kids are growing up, and I'm realizing, you know, we speak English at home. We're basically Americans. We live in this little bubble in this French town. I've got to teach my kids about peanut butter, and I've got to teach them about corn. Because in France, the only corn you eat here comes out of a can, right?
Yeah.
You've seen it. You get these salads with canned corn. It's like really bad. So in the Dordogne, it's the only region I know where they eat a corn cake, a corn kind of pancakey thing. They use feed corn, they grind it up, and they make this amazing pancake. But corn here is for the animals. So I launched myself.
Corn pops at the market.
They have what?
Corn pops at the market.
That's super new.
Yeah.
Super
Saw it
new.
yesterday in the Bon Marché.
You saw it yesterday? Oh Lord, that corn is from Peru.
I didn't ask for its birth certificate. I looked at it. And
Well,
I
you
said,
don't know who you're talking to.
I didn't buy it. I looked at it, and I mean, my mouth was watering for it, but for some reason, I just thought, it's not very good.
Of course it's not. It's freaking May. So when that brings up another subject. Anyway, so I launched myself on a year of corn with my son. I don't know if it made him a better person or not, but both my kids love to eat, and they eat everything, and they have turned into really good cooks.
Yeah, but
amazing.
look who their mother is. Excuse me, you've been cooking fabulously for them all these years.
I have, but you know, when you do that for your kids, poor kids, you know, I'd come for dinner, they'd come down to the kitchen, and between the time I called them for dinner and the time they got down there, I thought of like 4 more things I wanted to make. So they're sitting there going, Mom, we have homework. Why did you call us? Yes, I loved cooking for my kids. It was super fun. But peanut butter didn't go over well with my kids. They didn't like it, which was kind of an affront to me personally. I got over it. But it's like you cannot teach your kids to love something if they don't love it. And the French palate, which they have, doesn't like peanut butter.
But Nutella?
Nutella equals sugar. Nutella is hazelnuts and chocolate. I could tell you a story about the origins of Nutella, but probably not for this talk.
It's interesting you say that, Susan, simply because the one country that loves peanut butter as much as America is Holland.
I know, they do. But they were in Indonesia. They colonized Indonesia.
But it's interesting that
It's all related. I mean, when you start looking at, don't get me started on all this stuff. I taught the history of French gastronomy for 5-6 years, and I can talk for hours about stuff. But it's super interesting. Now, by the way, my daughter lives on peanut butter, and my son too. But, you know, it's just funny. The French palate, they don't like corn chips. They don't like peanut butter. I went to Thailand to research the nut book that I wrote, and I came back with all these cool recipes. And I had a big group of friends in Louviers, and they would always come to my house for dinner, and I would test recipes. So I'm testing these Thai meatball thingies that took me all day to make. I didn't stick with Thai food, really. It's so picky. But these things were amazing, but they were spicy. Nobody liked them. Too spicy. So once you've lived here for a while, you realize that the whole French palate is dictated by the way ingredients taste. And that's why people are demanding about their ingredients, and that's why there are markets every 2 seconds, everywhere. There isn't another culture that has as many markets as France. And it's because people here are demanding. So in my neighborhood in the 15th, I have a market 3 days a week, downstairs from my apartment. I didn't actually know that when I bought the apartment, but it's like they made that, it was made for me. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, there's a farmer who comes in from the outskirts. There's fishmonger who comes in from the Cotentin, which isn't very far away. And I just think, I pinch myself. every week, which is I'll get over maybe. But it's incredible here that we get food from producers who live near us. You have to look though. And you were making a joke about pedigree of food or asking where it comes from. If you go to the market and you look at the signs, every single sign says where that food comes from. So ESP is Spain. So when you're shopping, I urge you to shop for local products. They're better. Spain, it's okay to buy avocados from Spain, given your permission. But they're not in the market very often. You don't want to buy stuff from Peru. I mean, not that you don't want Peruvian farmers to live, but you want to, my whole philosophy is think local. This is boring now. It wasn't boring when I started talking about it. Think local, think seasonal. Think about the future. And the future is people working the soil. If we don't have those people, we don't progress as a society. And so it's our job to support them. It's really simple. So the more you can support local people, the better life is. And that's another thing about living in Paris is that you have to work a little harder to find local stuff, but it's here, definitely here. And when you go to the market, and I love to give tours of markets, when you go to the market and you look at the stands without the pineapples and the mangoes and all the other weird out of season stuff, probably is a local farmer who got up, at 4 to get in there to sell stuff. So it's really easy because the French, do you all know about the slow food movement? It's big in the US. Started in northern Italy, in Bra. And there's a whole story behind that, but the Italians, because of the poverty that they lived in, they kind of gave up a lot of their food traditions just to satisfy markets, etc. It's more complex than that, but the French never had to do that. And so the slow food movement works really well in Italy and many other countries. Doesn't work here because we all live slow food every day. It's just the way the French live. And if you live here very long, it's the way we all learn to live. So that's one of the big things that keeps me here. It's just so easy to follow your principles in that way. And plus there are great movie theaters and wonderful restaurants and so much. So I'm going to talk for just a minute about cookbooks. One of my new projects is helping people gather their recipes and put them into books. Because I honestly believe that if we keep hold of our recipes, we keep hold of our culture. And I'm really worried, I'm fundamentally worried that we're losing our culture. Fundamentally. And if you look back in history, when people traveled to settle other lands, and you realize what they brought with them, they brought seeds and they brought recipes as a way to stay connected to their home. Even in the concentration camps, people stayed alive by verbalizing meals and verbalizing recipes. They're so, so, so important. So I'm working with some clients now, and I'm developing this business of helping people bring their family recipes together or their favorites, and it's really fun to work with people on this, to get them into some sort of a book. Maybe a mass market publisher, probably not. That's harder even for people like me. But even a book that you can give to your friends and your kids, and if you don't have kids, just spread it around or just do it for yourself. Because I think it's a great way to save culture and build on culture. And we look at the world, and I know the pendulum will definitely swing to a better place. But we can help it with collecting recipes. So I think
there are a bunch of organizations in Louisiana. I know that their members have pulled together fabulous recipes, like the Junior League and whatever.
Oh, but
one of my favorite cookbooks is Talk About Good from New Orleans.
So
amazing.
If you travel around America, which I did for the farm book, which is
The Italian farmhouse?
The
no.
American farmhouse, I don't know. Maybe it's, anyway, I brought it with me. It's got a million Post-its in it. I love to use my books. I love them when they're printed. God, it's just so great to not go to the computer. But I traveled around twice, drove across the U.S. to visit with farmers. And the Junior League cookbooks and all of these community cookbooks, so Americans have it.
Oh, yeah.
We have it. We need to do it again. And now we need to do it familially, because we're sending our kids off into the universe without a food culture. And I think it's really important, and I've seen the way my kids, well, of course, I'm their mom, but they're really interested, and even my daughter-in-law's from the Republic of Georgia, and she is living in Texas. It's not very easy for her, so she keeps herself centered by making Georgian recipes. So when I go to Texas, I'm not in Texas, I'm in Georgia, eating hachapuri and all these amazing Georgian things. You know, I wake up in the morning and she's eating garlic cloves and feta cheese for breakfast. But that's her way of keeping her culture.
Do the French not do this? Or is it because they're so steeped in just repeating their traditional recipes that they're not really as creative with them?
They don't. I'm thinking about my friends
You know
in
what I mean
Normandy.
by
Yeah,
that?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I happen to know people who love to cook, but they do repeat.
Yeah, because for them it's perfecting the original recipe rather than taking something and being creative with it.
Yes.
It's a different
and it's
idea.
about what their mother made, or the maid made, or the grandmother made. So I'm
Right.
thinking about my friends, and there is repetition, I would say. Not quite as much creativity, but it's always so good. Because, you know, it's like my friend Edith in Normandy, she's like, oh my God, it's apricot season. I've got to make those cookies that our maid used to make for us, and scraping off the top cream and you know, kind of complicated. And you have to have raw milk to get that top cream. But that's what she grew up with. And in Normandy, you can still buy raw milk in a plastic bottle. You know, so I don't think, well, the French aren't as dispersed in their food tastes as we are.
No, that's right.
No, because they have a huge culture. So I wrote, the French Farmhouse Cookbook was translated into French, but it's much smaller volume because they took out all the basic recipes like mayonnaise, chicken stock, because French don't need those recipes.
They just
make them.
They just make them.
Caramel.
They just know how to do
They
it,
just
right?
make it. So when I was in cooking school, when I was an apprentice, you know, the chefs used to get all over us about caramel and like, oh, you have to do this and it's so complicated and it can burn and it sees and all this stuff. Then I'm living in Normandy and, you know, watching my friends who never went to cooking school making caramel everything. And I'm like, it's not that complicated. And guess what? It's not. Now you can make caramel with your eyes closed. I mean, I can because I don't have to worry, because you get a sense of food. It's like mayonnaise. People don't buy mayonnaise here. I mean, they do, but not an old-fashioned Coke. Why would you buy mayonnaise when you can make it in 2 seconds? And it tastes really good when you make it. So the reality of the French cook, and of course everything's changing. I mean, you know, Picard, you know, the frozen food, cool company, family-owned, very cool company. It is giving a certain uniformity to dinner parties, especially appetizers.
Oh God.
But people still cook here. They do. And it just depends on the family. It's like anywhere. You know, those traditions are important to some and not to everybody else. So, but think about gathering your recipes. Think about it. You know, it takes time. It takes some money. It does for sure. But then you have them and you can give them to people. And it's your legacy. It's a certain type of legacy. And we all, I guess, want to leave a certain type of legacy. So I urge you to really think about that, because I think the people around you will appreciate it a lot more than you realize. So I've been working with a guy for a year on his cookbook, and he's adorable. Just a client. But his recipes, maybe it's not the kind of food I would love to cook myself, but he's so into it. I'm like, I don't know, he was like an engineer or something. But it's so wonderful to see that he's doing this book and he's going to give it to all his friends and his family. What a great gift. Next Christmas, they're all going to get a book. So it's pretty, yes.
We did that one year in our family. I've been in France for 52 years.
Oh, yay!
And
You might have a speed, Harriet.
everything you're saying about the French food is true. My French mother-in-law, you guys love your creme caramel. That was her dish. I said, "You make a recipe?" And she said, "I don't have a recipe." You know, it's like, what recipe? So with my sister-in-law, we tried to reconstitute what she'd done. And we had a couple together recipe, but that gave us the idea to do a family recipe. So we did it, including recipes from the American family.
Oh, that's wonderful. See, that's wonderful. That's so wonderful. So I grew up with a mother who loved to cook, and she cooked, I don't think we had the same thing twice. She had 5 kids, and we just had great meals. So I got together with my sisters one year. I said, let's do a family cookbook. There were like 3 recipes she repeated. You can't do a family cookbook when we couldn't pull it off because every meal was something different. And when we thought about her and her food, there was like a bean casserole or something that was the iconic. You can't make a cookbook out of a bean casserole. So we never did it. But I think, you know, I've done, both my kids went off to college with handwritten cookbooks for me of the favorite things that they grew up eating. You know, I don't know if they used them, but you know, we send our kids off to college with all this stuff like that they don't see the value of for a while.
Susan, my mother made the greatest Louisiana seafood gumbo ever.
Do you have the recipe?
She refused to
Your
give it to
mom.
anyone. She said she was
Really?
dying with it. And she did.
So,
Can you imagine?
so part of my work writing cookbooks is I visited farms in 3 different countries, and I visited people all over the world, standing there watching them cook. They don't have recipes. They would take, you know, I have experience, so I know about quantities. So I would figure it out. I'd write it down. I never ever took a video because half the time of my books were before cell phones. Wouldn't occur to me to take a video. You know, you have to be there. You have to smell it. You have to watch them. You have to understand. Taking notes in Italy. I was working on the Italian cookbook, and oh my God, I would get home and my notes were in like Italian, French, and English, and oh God, it was hard to decipher them. But the recipes in that book were amazing, and I didn't know anything about Italian food. Nothing when I did that book. In fact, my editor asked me to do the book, and I said no. Because I didn't even know pasta. You know, I knew less than any of my American friends. Because I'd been so focused on French food, and then I woke up in the middle of the night and went, are you kidding? They're going to give you money to go to Italy and learn about the food. So I said yes.
And eat.
And eat. So I said yes.
Apropos of what you're talking about, I am not recommending this movie as any great movie, but it just came out on Netflix called Nonas,
Oh, okay.
and it's exactly what you're talking about, where these aging actresses that are nonas come together in a restaurant and with their recipes.
Wonderful.
And
Is it?
not-
It's a documentary, right?
it actually
Yeah,
is
because
based on a
there's
true
a
story.
there's a restaurant that does that. I think in New York.
Exactly.
yeah.
On the island, and it's, you know, it's a dreadful movie.
Not the PR agent for the movie.
No, I mean, you know, I
But
went
the
to
idea
cooking
is
school
great.
with Marcella Hazan. I love Italian.
You're
cooking.
courageous.
Oh yeah, she was
Oh,
a
you don't
tough
have to
cookie.
be courageous.
Marcella?
I cooked at least 50% of her recipes out
Oh
of
my
all of
God,
her
she
books.
was my icon.
But
She and Julia.
herself ate nails and spit rust.
Oh, that's true.
She
She's
was?
right. Yes.
She was
Very
tough.
caustic.
Oh, that's why I said you have to be
Oh.
courageous.
Oh.
That
because of
that
her.
Tiffany whistle of hers.
Well,
in a tiny little kitchen in Venice.
see, I don't know about all that, but
She'd blow the whistle, your ears would. If you,
She was tough.
there were
as
She
only
was a
six
trip.
of us in there. It was
she was a trip. I do that, by the way.
Yeah.
She was crazy, but
Tiffany whistle.
she was a hell of a cook.
I think I'm gonna get
And
one.
best.
somebody who was
best.
allergic to wine would drink a highball glass of Jack Daniels neat.
But that, my mother lived to be 102. She had 2 cocktails every day of her life.
God bless. Yeah.
And after a while, and she probably a lot more at certain times, but there she is, the grande dame of where she was living, and 2 cocktails every single night. There is a preserving quality to alcohol, and she kept her brain till the very end.
Oh God,
Yeah.
that's too funny.
So, are we ready for questions?
Sure.
There are questions. Yes.
So, I know that the food is wonderful, but how do they cook it in these little teeny tiny Parisian kitchens? When I got here and I bought a stove for my apartment, I had a condition that they were just blown away. I have my great-grandmother's cast iron pot that she taught me the first cooking lesson when I was 10, and she taught me stew, which I now understand was beef bourguignon. And I brought, when she passed away, I got her cast iron pot, and I brought it here. And I would not buy a stove unless they measured it to be sure that that pot
would fit.
And you know what they were saying about you?
They thought I
God,
was
she's
nuts.
so American. So, the thing you learn about a French home cook, they don't have equipment. They don't have nice knives. It's not about that. It's just about, it's about getting dinner. And I can't really explain to you the whys of it. I can just say that there's almost body language. And, we in America, we're used to space. We're used to every little piece of equipment. I'm the first, I have all my equipment, and I'm now cooking on induction, which I fought, but I actually decided I needed to learn how to do it since most of my students have induction. But the French aren't into the doodads and the equipment. They just get it done. My friend Edith, who, if you've read my memoir, you know about her. She's like my French sister in every way, which means sometimes it's really complicated. You know how sisters can be. But she has a knife that's this long and it's got a little chip. It's her knife. It's like I've given her good knives, always wrapped in a piece of money, of course. She does not care, and she makes great food. So it's just a different mindset. We need our space and our stuff. They just don't, because they just get it done.
I've discovered a small kitchen is way more efficient than a large kitchen.
It's great.
Yeah.
Everything's to hand. You don't need a lot of stuff.
No.
You really, really don't. It's more about the quality of the ingredients. And then what are you going to do to those ingredients that's not going to annihilate them or that's going to bring out the best of them? So it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day, Edith, again. I went to live with them to get my French in order. They had 3 little kids, and if you want to get your French in order, go live with some little kids. They will humiliate you to the point where you have to fight for yourself. So she's doing all this cooking à l'étouffée. It's braising. She braised everything that wouldn't stand still. Her food was so good. And now braising is a big deal, so is bone broth and all this stuff. I'm sorry. Bone broth is stock. And braising is étouffée. And these are just French techniques that people use. And they're simple. They're very, very simple. Cooking is not complicated.
Like Julia Child.
Pardon me?
Like Julia Child. What's your opinion of Julia Child's recipes? I've tried these.
Well, her recipes are way out of date today. They are way out of date because she wrote her books when we, as Americans, didn't know anything. We did not have a level of knowledge about French food. So God bless her, she brought it to us. And she spent years of her life translating French techniques so that we can understand it. But now, and I mean, her books were my Bible.
Oh, I know.
For many, many years, if I wanted to figure out how to explain how to make a souffle, or souffle was a big one, there was another recipe. I'd go to her language and think, now it's so out of date because we know so much more. And recipes need to be simpler. Her recipes are way overcomplicated, but she was writing for a time.
I make poulet fondue, fondue de poulet à la crème all the time, but I mixed it up my way. So
But
it's
that's
not-
recipes.
Yeah.
You know, I always say use a recipe the way it's meant to be used the first time, then have fun.
Yeah.
Then have fun with it. And I say that to my students. You know, I'm pretty rigorous about the recipes. And I want them to follow the recipe, but then you go, you know, it's like learning how to cook. It's like learning technique and learning the French way. Once you know it, you can springboard from it to do more things. But what I find a lot of times when I go to the US, and I'm not talking about every restaurant, but an inexperienced chef will just keep adding flavor because they're not understanding what's going on. And then when you add too much flavor, it becomes muddy. So here it's really hard to have muddy food here in France.
My first cookbook was Julia Child,
Yeah.
and I remember 3 pages to cook a hamburger.
Yep.
I know.
Yep.
People in Europe and
Yeah, but you know, God bless her, she did us a huge service. And cookbooks now are just different. You know, they're different. And my job when I write recipes, which I do almost every day of my life, is I'm imagining the person cooking and how can I make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 so that it's not intimidating, so that it makes sense, so that every possible question can be answered. Because I know it's very intimidating to take a recipe, and I know for my students it's like, I don't really get this, or I don't really understand that. So I learn as much from my students as they learn from me, because I take any confusion I see or any questions I have and try to incorporate it into what I'm doing. So it's great. And if you decide to do your cookbook and you want to work with me, I'm going to make you get your recipes in order. Very strict. But you have to, because if you're going to give recipes away, you want people to make them. I mean, that's part of the point. You're recording your culture, and you're hoping that it will live beyond you, with you and beyond you. So you want recipes to make sense.
Susan, what are some of your favorite restaurants here?
Oh, good question. There's one near the Jardin Luxembourg that's called Ambos, A-M-B-O-S. And it's, I believe, it's a husband-wife. She's from Venezuela, he's French. And they do the most amazing combinations of French technique with Venezuelan ideas. Really good. My very favorite restaurant at the moment is called Solstice. It's in the 5th. Solstice. Unbelievable. It's got a 1 or 2 stars. The guy is humble, talented. His wife is Korean, but any starred restaurant is going to have Asian influence, because especially Japan and French are not that different in terms of the rigor, the technique, and mostly the rigor, the perfection. But Solstice is worth a trip, definitely. There's a little restaurant in my neighborhood called Belisaire, Belisaire. Talk of the town. It's just a little neighborhood spot. Let's see. I love a place called Les Botanistes, right off Rue de Bac, behind the Bon Marché. Simple mom and pop place. Botanistes. Yeah, Les Botanistes. And then there's this one, I think it's called 228 Liters or something like that. And it's over here on this side of the river. And riding my bike, I just know I have to go like all over the place, and up hills and down hills. 228, it's the quantity of wine in a barrel. And it's a wine bar, and they have visiting chefs. Their food is incredible, and their wine list is amazing. So I probably have some others. that I can't think of right now.
I need to make a date with you is what I need to do.
You do. No, I was thinking about that. Once I get over PTSD of moving
Yeah.
and selling and buying.
Did you redo your kitchen?
Oh, totally. Yeah, well, I did because I bought a very tiny place and I made it into a cooking studio so I can teach. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, the
It's great.
kitchen in Louviers was
Yeah, it was pretty
fabulous.
amazing. Huge.
It was
Big as
fabulous.
this room.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. Yes.
In your opinion, how do you keep cookbooks relevant still in a time and an age that's becoming more and more digital, filled with things like IA and computers?
It's a really good question. A horrifying question. I can't do anything about it. I just keep doing what I do. And I know there are people who appreciate it. And I know people are still buying cookbooks. The cookbook industry is healthy. Not as healthy as it was for because everybody is in it. AI will, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people I know will, get their phone and say, I want to make a recipe for blah, blah, and AI says, okay, here's what you do. No idea. Wouldn't occur to me to do that because of my job. I just can't imagine that makes people feel warm and cozy to have AI give them a recipe. But
Can
what do
I tell
know?
you an AI story?
Sure.
Okay, because you were talking about a creme caramel. I used to make a creme caramel in the States that I think was a Betty Crocker recipe. I think, okay, but it became very well known. And when I came here, I couldn't reproduce it because the ingredients were so different. It was just not the same milk, not the same powdered sugar, not the same whatever, right? So I literally stopped making it. And then when I was in Maui with my daughter, over Thanksgiving, she says, Mom, would you please make your creme caramel? And I was like, I haven't made this in 30 years and I have no idea where the recipe is. But what did we do? We got onto ChatGPT and literally told them about a recipe that existed, I don't know how many years ago, that did not use condensed milk, because that was the only thing I could remember about it, that it did not use condensed milk.
Like, why would you?
No, well, a lot of the creme caramel recipes use condensed milk. That was the only thing I could remember, and I could remember some of the ingredients, but I swear it popped up the right recipe.
Oh my God.
And I went, that's it, that's the recipe. So I made it, and it was perfect.
So
amazing. So
I
that's
just
the only
hope-
thing I can say.
I just hope before I die that there's still lots of work for me to do. But obviously, ChatGPT, AI, fabulous. I mean, I couldn't have got through the house sale without ChatGPT. No way, because I found myself having to write letters in French to so many different assholes. And I had to do it in a polite way. And I had to do it in a formal way. And I had to make sure they understood what I was talking about. And my French is good. But it doesn't matter how good it is. If you aren't French, it's hard to know all the tournure of how to do a phrase that really says what it's supposed to say. God bless ChatGPT. I'm serious. And, did it mean that those people did what I told them to do? No, not necessarily. But did it mean that I was approaching them in a respectful, proper, appropriate way? Yes. So I think it's great. As for recipes, I don't know. I mean, it's like saying, what about all the recipes on the internet? I'm here to tell you there are no editors on the internet.
That's right.
There are no editors in AI. So you can make those recipes, and if they don't turn out, you're still going to say to yourself, I'm a terrible cook. You make one of my recipes, you're not going to say that. So, my job, what I do is to make you look good and make you a good cook. There's nobody who's going to care about you that much. Does that matter? Who knows? Because you found your recipe.
Well, I was at least able to find it.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of value in that. And I haven't used it because I haven't needed to. Someday I'll probably end up using it for, I don't know what. Find that recipe for panucci, or something like that. I don't know. I never thought of it. There you go.
On the contrary to what Adrian was saying, your cookbooks, which are based on cooking here,
translate to someone using ingredients in America, because as you say, the consistencies and the flours are
Different.
so different.
They're not as different as they were when Julie did her recipes, I'll tell you that. But every recipe in my books are tested in the US with US ingredients. So I test them here, and then I send them to someone to test, because I understand that. You know, and take broccoli. Broccoli here and broccoli in the US are like two different animals. It is important to understand that. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because things here are much different, mostly because they have a lot more flavor, and that's just how it is. And even from a farmer's market in the U.S., you know, it just depends. Eggs are different here. Milk is different here.
Absolutely.
It has to do with the distance of food travels, mostly.
And, I mean, I've come against, you know, some of the same things that she has, because I really like to cook. And I learned to cook when I became single again, and I had to feed myself. And I went to a little seminar by Mark Pittman, and I bought his book on how to cook everything. And
Brilliant title, by the way.
How, what is it? How to cook everything?
Had to think of it.
But it's a marvelous thing, because anything that you could possibly think of making, pretty much, is in this book.
Frog's legs?
Huh?
Frog's legs?
Probably not.
Maybe.
No, as far as
Yeah.
things that you would do. But even here, I found that some of the things just did not translate well when I tried to make them.
We do have different ingredients here, from cream to yogurt to, and I want to say, I mean, my palate's adapted now to here, so when I go buy yogurt in the U.S., but I always felt that way about yogurt. It's much more acidic than it is here. Flour now is almost interchangeable if you know which flour to buy. Butter, pretty much interchangeable.
No.
No.
Butter?
For baking, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, believe me, I've taught a million classes in the U.S. and, you know, Land O'Lakes butter, or if you can get President, it's better.
Yeah.
But, you know, the other thing too is you don't want to get so precious that people aren't going to do your recipes.
Right.
So part of my job is to say, okay, what can people really afford to bake with? You know, I'm not going to tell people to go get that plus gras butter. Number one, it doesn't work for most recipes. And number two, Land O'Lakes makes great pastry. It does. It's got a little more water in it than French butter, but it works really, really well. And now it's easy also to get certain French butters, but not everybody has the means to do that. So I try to make recipes. There's your daughter. Any other questions? I think we're at the Q&A. I have business cards here if you'd like to take one with you. Please contact me about classes or books or.
Be able to get up.
Oh, my classes are really fun. They're hands-on. I decide the menu because they're totally seasonal. And I have dates on the website when I'm holding classes. What I'm finding, though, is people want classes when they want them. So I also do private classes. And I'm getting huge requests from people who want to do one-on-one, two-on-one. You know, it's cool. It's great. But it's a full menu, hands-on. You do everything. There are tastings. And then we all sit down together and have lunch and drink wine and taste cheeses. So they start at 10:30 and they go to about 3:30. So it's a full day of really learning, and you get recipes, and I'm very focused on technique. So if I see you holding your knife in a way that's making it hard for you, I will come and show you how to make it easy.
You mean like that? Like the slice
Yeah,
I put in my thumb the
exactly.
other
Or like
night?
I went to a friend's for dinner and she'd cut her hand on the mandolin. It's like, did you have protection? No. So, you know, lots of ways to make cooking easier and more fun.
In a small kitchen?
Big enough for 4 to 6. Yeah, it's small.
No, but
Yeah.
we have 12 square
Oh.
feet in our kitchen now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you have to learn to adapt. You just have to learn to live with that. You know, it takes some learning, but it can be done. You can do it. Yeah.
Are you giving big dinners? Have you done any big dinners like you used to do in Louviers?
With friends, you mean?
Like, no, you know your
Oh,
our
like-
big Sunday dinners.
I haven't. I have proved to myself that I can sit 10 at a table though in my apartment.
Oh, but Susan,
Eat
maybe you
with
need to do a few
ease.
dinners.
A few dinners, yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, I was so excited. I did my yearly Easter brunch, and 10 people were very comfortable. My apartment is 34 square meters.
Wow. But maybe there'd be a venue for you. Maybe you can find a venue.
Not doing that anymore.
Oh,
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Nope. Life
love
is
those dinners.
simple. Oh, they were so much fun. Adrian used to come with groups. We had so much fun. But we had like 20 people, right? 15 maybe?
14 or 18 or something.
I did
like
dinners, I did Thanksgivings every year for 26 people. And mostly French. It took me years to figure it out, but I would go to this poultry farmer and let him know that I needed a turkey for a certain date, and he would have them for me.
that. And how much were they?
How much it cost?
Uh-huh.
Usually around 110 euro.
Uh-huh. But
Best
they were
turkey
great.
ever. Huge. And I'd always ask for like a certain size, and it would be like 10 times bigger. Oh yeah, I had a huge oven. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you all so much for
No.
coming.
Thank you, Ms. Loomis.
Yes.
Okay,
my dear.
last thing. Where do they get your books?
You can buy my books on all on the website nobody wants to talk about. But there's another one. Oh,
What website is that?
Awesome Books. Do you know about Awesome Books out of the UK? Barnes & Noble. Anywhere you get books, you can get my books. And you can order them through the Red Wagon. Is it the Red Wagon?
The Red Wheel Wagon?
The whatever. The Red whatever.
The Red Wheel.
And also, I think, yeah, I mean, even
Thank
W.H.
you,
Smith.
Wheelbarrow.
Even W.H. Smith. So they're very
And
available.
to find out about your courses?
Yeah, my website is susanloomis.com. And I do have business cards right here, so I'll put some here. So I would welcome your queries or your presence at my classes. I would love that.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.